It was shaping up to be a perfect Sunday. The sun was finally cutting through the morning mist, painting my front yard in that golden light that makes all the hard work worth it. I'd spent the last few weeks coaxing my roses back to life, deadheading, fertilizing, and generally showering them with the kind of TLC that would make a therapist proud. The air smelled like earth and blooming jasmine, a heady mix that instantly calmed my nerve. I was knelt down, carefully adjusting the support for a particularly vigorous climber, humming along to some chill hop I had streaming through my earbuds, blissfully unaware of the impending storm. This storm came in the form of a beige Buick, creeping slowly down my street like a predator stalking its prey. It stopped directly across from my house, idling with an aggressive purr. I barely registered it at first, too engrossed in my floral masterpiece. But then the passenger window whirred down, and a voice, sharp and shrill enough to shatter glass, pierced through my music. "Hey! You there! Open the garage door!" I straightened up, pulling out my earbuds. The woman in the car was ancient, easily pushing 80, with a face like a crumpled paper bag and eyes that held the distinct sparkle of entitlement and simmering rage. She was leaning halfway out of the window, one hand gripping the frame like she was clinging to the last shred of her sanity. "Excuse me?" I asked, genuinely confused. I'd only moved into this neighborhood a few months ago, and hadn't really interacted with anyone yet. My job with the bureau kept me pretty busy, and outside of neighborly waves, I didn't really have time to get involved in the local community. I was already trying to figure out who this woman was and why she thought she was entitled to something from me. "The garage door. I need you to open it. I know you work here," she screeched, her voice cracking with indignation. "Don't play dumb with me, girl. I saw you." My confusion morphed into disbelief. Was she seriously mistaking me for some kind of remote garage door operator? For her? My skin prickled with a sudden, unpleasant awareness. This wasn't just about a misunderstanding. There was something else lurking beneath the surface, something ugly and familiar. "Ma'am, I live here," I said, trying to keep my voice calm and even. "I don't work for anyone. I'm tending to my garden." I gestured to my roses, hoping the sight of them might somehow penetrate her delusion. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't you lie to me. I know you're kind. Just open the door." That's when I saw it, the blatant, unmistakable racism in her gaze. The way she spat out the word kind like it was a curse. My blood simmered. This was going to be one of those days. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I was a federal agent, trained to handle far more stressful situations than a geriatric bigot with a penchant for public disturbances. But even with years of training, the casual, blatant nature of her racism still stung. I wanted to shout, to unleash the full force of my frustration, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. "Ma'am," I repeated, my voice firm, "I don't know what you're talking about. You need to leave. I'm going to ask you nicely to drive away now." She just laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "Oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm calling the police. You're trespassing. And you're refusing to do your job." She fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. I rolled my eyes, partly in annoyance, partly in morbid amusement. This was almost too ridiculous to be real. As she started to dial, I decided to play along, but document the whole thing. I pulled out my phone, opened my camera app, and started recording. "Go right ahead," I said, making sure the camera was focused on her. "Call the police. I have nothing to hide." She glared at me, her face contorted with rage. "You'll be sorry. You'll all be sorry." She finally managed to connect the call. 911, what's your emergency?" A calm voice asked on the other end. "I have a trespasser on my property. She's refusing to open the garage door. She's being belligerent and confrontational," the woman shrieked into the phone. "She's probably going to steal all my belongings." I couldn't help but snort. "Trespassing? Ma'am, I'm standing in my own front yard, watering my rose bushes. I have the deed to prove it." I spoke loud enough for the 911 operator to hear. "She's lying. Don't listen to her," the woman yelled, her face turning an alarming shade of purple. "She's one of them. They're all the same." I just shook my head, continuing to record. This was gold. Or, more accurately, platinum-level ridiculousness. I decided to check my security cameras as well as they record front and back and get a good view of the street. I made sure all the footage was being safely stored on my personal encrypted drive. The 911 operator, bless her heart, sounded increasingly bewildered. "Ma'am, can you please provide your address and the nature of the emergency again?" The woman sputtered, rattled off an address a few blocks away, and hung up abruptly. "They're on their way," she declared triumphantly, puffing out her chest like a deranged pigeon. "You're going to jail." I just smiled sweetly. "We'll see about that." I went back to my roses, making a show of carefully snipping off a dead bloom. I knew the police would be here soon, and I wanted to be ready. This was going to be interesting. It didn't take long for the police to arrive. 2 cruisers pulled up to the curb, sirens silent but lights flashing, casting an ominous glow on my perfectly manicured lawn. 2 officers, a man and a woman, emerged from the vehicles, looking understandably confused. I could see them glance from the woman in the Buick to me, then back again. The male officer, who looked to be in his late 20s, approached the Buick cautiously. "Ma'am, we received a call about a disturbance," he said, his voice polite but firm. The woman in the Buick immediately launched into a tirade, pointing her bony finger at me. "That's her. She's trespassing. She's refusing to open the garage door. She's threatening me." The officer turned to me, raising an eyebrow. "Ma'am, can you explain what's going on here?" I took a deep breath and decided to cut to the chase. "Officer, I live here, at this address. That woman," I pointed to the Buick, "is harassing me, claiming I work for her and should open her garage door. She's also made several racially charged comments." The female officer, who had been standing back observing, stepped forward, her expression hardening. "Did she make any specific threats, ma'am?" "No specific threats, other than implying I would be arrested," I replied. "But I have video evidence of the entire encounter, including her racist remarks." I gestured to my phone, still recording. The male officer looked skeptical. "Video evidence?" "Yes. And I'd also like to inform you that I am an FBI agent," I said calmly, reaching into my back pocket and pulling out my credentials. I flashed my badge and ID for both officers to see. The effect was immediate. Their demeanor shifted from cautious skepticism to stunned respect. The woman in the Buick, however, just cackled. "FBI agent? Don't be ridiculous. Like you? Never." The female officer gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The male officer's face flushed with anger. "Ma'am, that's completely inappropriate," he said sternly to the woman in the Buick. I just sighed. "As you can see, officers, this woman is clearly not in her right mind." I gestured to the security camera mounted above my garage. "Everything is recorded. You can review the footage at your leisure." The male officer immediately started walking towards my security camera to verify the footage, and the female officer began speaking to the old woman in the car. She tried to become the victim, and even stated she was scared. The 911 call was reviewed by the male officer, and he agreed with his partner that she was in the wrong. The female officer asked her for her identification and began to run her license. The female officer returned to the car after running the license of the old woman. "Ma'am, your license is suspended and your vehicle registration expired 3 years ago." She then asked her to step out the vehicle so she could do a more thorough search. The old woman refused and became erratic in the car, yelling and hitting the steering wheel as she yelled about the car being hers and to leave her alone. The male officer was able to open the driver's side door and help her step out of the vehicle. She eventually obliged and began to sob and grab at the female officer. "I just need someone to open the garage door, that's all," she muttered. Eventually, after a few minutes, the officer were able to calm her down as they called her emergency contact, which was her son. When the son arrived, he was in disbelief of the situation, as he claimed she only left home to go to the local grocery store. He claimed his mother has beginning stages of dementia and often has lapses in memory. The officers explained to the son that she has been making racial remarks and terrorizing Doja. Doja explained to the son about the situation, and he was very apologetic. The officers decided to take her to the hospital for a psych evaluation. Before taking her away, the female officer turned to me, her expression apologetic. "Agent Doja, right? I am so sorry you had to experience this. We'll make sure she gets the help she needs." "Thank you, officer," I said, offering a weary smile. "I appreciate it." I watched as they helped the woman into the back of the cruiser, her frail body trembling. Even in that moment, I felt a pang of something that almost resembled pity. This was a sad situation, a stark reminder of the deep-seated prejudices that still festered in our society. As the cruiser pulled away, the son came to apologize to me. He explained his mom has had dementia and the sundowning is getting worse. I accepted his apology and told him I hope his mother gets the help she needs. He thanked me and left. The adrenaline that had been coursing through my veins finally began to dissipate, leaving me feeling drained and strangely deflated. The sun was higher now, casting long shadows across my lawn. My roses, once a source of joy and tranquility, now seemed to mock me with their vibrant beauty, a stark contrast to the ugliness I had just experienced. I went inside, poured myself a stiff glass of whiskey. Yes, even FBI agents need a little something to take the edge off sometimes, and replayed the security footage. Watching the whole scene unfold again, I was struck by how quickly the situation had escalated, how easily prejudice could bubble to the surface, turning a simple Sunday morning into a chaotic mess. I knew I had to report the incident to the Bureau. Protocol demanded it, especially since I had identified myself as an agent. I dreaded the paperwork, the internal reviews, the endless meetings that would inevitably follow. It was all so tedious, so bureaucratic. I sat down at my computer and started drafting the report, carefully detailing the events of the morning, including the racist comments and the woman's erratic behavior. I attached the security footage and the video I had recorded on my phone. I knew the Bureau would take it seriously, but I also knew it would be a long and drawn-out process. As I was typing, I received a call from my supervisor, Agent Miller. "Doja, I just got a call from the local PD. Heard you had a bit of excitement this morning," he said, his voice laced with amusement. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine, Agent Miller," I replied. "Just dealing with the usual garden-variety crazy." He chuckled. "I saw the footage. That woman was something else. Still, you handled it well. Just file the report and we'll take care of it." "Thanks, Agent Miller," I said, feeling a slight sense of relief. At least I didn't have to explain the whole thing in excruciating detail. After I finished the report, I decided to take a long, hot shower to wash away the residue of the morning's event. As I stood under the steaming water, I couldn't help but feel a sense of weariness. This wasn't the first time I had encountered racism, and it probably wouldn't be the last. It was just a sad fact of life, a constant battle against ignorance and prejudice that never seemed to end. A few weeks passed. The report was filed, the internal review was completed, and the whole incident faded into the background noise of my life. The woman, Robin, was still in the psychiatric facility, undergoing treatment. Her son had reached out to me again, expressing his gratitude for my understanding and patience. He explained that his mother's condition was more serious than they had initially realized, and that she would likely need long-term care. I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and a lingering sense of unease. On one hand, I was glad that Robin was getting the help she needed. On the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that the whole thing was a symptom of a deeper societal problem, a reflection of the ingrained prejudices that still lingered in our culture. I decided to focus on the things I could control: my work, my garden, my own well-being. I threw myself into my latest case, a complex investigation involving a network of international cybercriminals. The work was challenging and demanding, but it also gave me a sense of purpose, a feeling that I was making a difference in the world. I also spent more time in my garden, tending to my roses, planting new flowers, and enjoying the simple beauty of nature. I even joined a local gardening club, hoping to connect with other people in the neighborhood and build some genuine relationship. One sunny afternoon, as I was weeding my flower beds, one of my new neighbors, a young woman named Sarah, stopped by to chat. "I heard what happened with that woman a few weeks ago," she said, her expression sympathetic. "I just wanted to say that I'm really sorry. That kind of thing shouldn't happen to anyone." "Thanks, Sarah," I said, smiling warmly. "I appreciate that. This is a great place, and I hope that her actions don't deter you from living here." "There is so much good in this neighborhood," she said. As she continued on her walk, I made a mental note to leave her a rose from my garden. As I continued weeding, I realized that even in the face of prejudice and ignorance, there was still hope. Hope in the kindness of strangers, hope in the power of community, and hope in the ability of people to learn and grow. I spent the rest of the afternoon planting a new rose bush, a vibrant crimson variety called Hope for Humanity. As I carefully patted the soil around the roots, I thought about the future, about the kind of world I wanted to live in, and about the small but important role I could play in making that world a reality. I'm pretty sure this is where I am supposed to be.